do you know it is faster and easier to travel to London as opposed to travel, for example, to Accra, Ghana, Mr. Speaker, to travel to Nigeria? Because the connectivity between Africa and Europe and America is far much better in Middle East than even traveling within Africa. So we need, the only challenge to ensure that we need to develop in the development, Mr. Speaker, is to ensure that, Mr. Speaker, quickly moving is the point number 2 is sustainable goals, which are 17. The first goal, Mr. Speaker, is no poverty. There is no dignity in poverty. And yesterday, Senator Orwo, we were discussing the provision of sanitary towels in our country. And we were talking about period poverty. There is no dignity in poverty, Mr. Speaker. If we say there is no poverty, we need to ensure each and every Kenyan can access 3 square meals, can take their children to school, Mr. Speaker, can access medical care, affordable and quality education. That is the only way we can end. And SDG number 1 is there should be no poverty, Mr. Speaker, because there is no dignity in poverty, even in housing. And I want to thank the government of President William Ruto for ensuring that we have a sustainable cities and communities, a sustainable goal number 11. So in fact, what President William Ruto is doing, government, is complying with 17 goals of sustainable development goals. Because one of these is creating sustainable communities and cities and no poverty. Because even the indicators of poverty, Mr. Speaker, is even access to housing, because basics, Mr. Speaker, are clothes, food, and shelter. So in 60 years down the line, Mr. Speaker, we are still discussing about the basics, food, shelter, and housing. And one of the factors that the government is trying to do is ensure there is a dignified place for living for most of the Kenyans. And you remember during Kibaki era, we had to use slum upgrading program here in Kibra, Mr. Speaker, even through national housing, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, we must reflect the threat to development of sustainable goals, and a threat to development of sustainable goals is we must be compliant with 17 goals. Number 2, Mr. Speaker, we need to end and ensure food security. That is sustainable goal number 2 of 17. Zero hunger, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, many Kenyans, and that is why as we are pushing for school feeding program, most of our children miss school because of issues of hunger. And that is why we need to ensure that the feed programs within the ECD centers, Mr. Speaker, we need to refocus our energies. I saw school feeding program here in Nairobi, although the Office of the Auditor General has questioned the issue of school feeding program called Dish in a County for lack of transparency and accountability. Mr. Speaker, we have seen school feeding program, Mr. Speaker, in the financial year of 2022-2023, Mr. Speaker, where over 63 million in Trans Nzoia County, 63 million worth of school feeding program was given out, but only 185,051 packets of 200 meals of milk was being supplied to the school, Mr. Speaker. So you can see counties are planning for school feeding program, but they don't follow it up. Because looking at the Trans Nzoia County in financial year 2023-2024, a program, school feeding program worth 64 million, only less than 1% was delivered by the time the audit was done. Similar to Dish in a County here in Nairobi. So the fact of zero hunger in these countries, we must have a sustainable food security, Mr. Speaker. That is sustainable goal number 2. And I want to thank the government, Mr. Speaker, because we are in planting season in where I come from, in North Rift. When President William Ruto took over government, we used to buy fertilizer at 7,000 shillings. Courtesy of this subsidy program, we are buying fertilizer at 2,500, and it is being supplied. For example, in Nandi County, you go to Lesos NCPB, you go to Monsoriat and Cereals Board, you go to Celia Cereals Board, you go to Kobucha, Mr. Speaker, Cereal Board, where my farmers are picking subsidized fertilizers so that we ensure there is food security in this country, Mr. Speaker. And the reason there is a lot of noise, Mr. Speaker, in the country is because there is enough food. That is what is happening. The reason people are having energy of shouting at government, even acting echoes of one, Mr. Speaker, is because there is enough food in the country. Even Murang'a County, I'm happy I saw the governor of Murang'a, Irungu Wakangata, was issuing, Mr. Speaker, you need to protect me for indigenous behavior of Senator Orwoba. You should just be patient when seniors are speaking. Mr. Speaker.
You're protected, Senator Gloria.
Yes. Yesterday, she moved her bill for 1.5 hours. Some of us did not have a problem.
That is true.
Yeah, I'm just trying, because I'm seconding. I'm trying to give the House the information. I'll just finish in the next 2-3 minutes. 2-3 minutes. So, Speaker, I saw, because we want to see best practices at the Murang'a County, led by Senator Irungu Kangata, and of course, my brother, Senator, you know, the money Irungu Kangata uses is what Senator Metu is pushing. Senator Nyutu is pushing in this floor of the House. And I saw him giving out seeds and subsidized fertilizer. That is how he is complying with sustainable goal number 2 on zero hunger, of ensuring food security. And the reason there is a lot of noise against the government of President William Ruto is because people are full. There is a lot of food in the country. And that is why they are making a lot of noise against this government. People are full, Mr. Speaker. And you remember the former ambassador of United States, Michael Reinfacker, or was it Edward Clay, that the people are too full until they were vomiting on our shoes. And that is what is happening with the opponents of President William Ruto government. If there was no food in this country, there would be no noise. But because the president has implemented the issue of zero hunger and food security in this country, you can imagine, Mr. Speaker. And even let us plant, I'm happy, let us diversify, Mr. Speaker. Finally, I want to just, in 1 minute, touch on what the government, so that members can understand that we had a number of organizations that were presenting, because this is just sustainable development goals that we pick up from Mwai Kibaki. Mr. Speaker, for international reviews, the position of Kenya in that summit in New York was very clear that we need to fight hunger in this country. And I've told you, most of our children don't attend schools because of lack of food. We need to improve on school feeding program. But the school feeding, even the national school feeding program has problems. I can see they normally allocate 4 billion. But National Assembly should come out and do the audit of the program, NACONEX, that is being run by Ministry of Education. It smells, it works, it wafts corruption, Mr. Speaker. You cannot go to Garissa County and give us the primary schools that the school feeding program by Ministry of Education is being done. And that is why we are challenging the National Assembly. Instead of encroaching on the whole functions, like building markets, like wanting to take road maintenance levy fund of 11 billion, they should be oversight things like NACONEX, things like a provision of sanitary pads. Yesterday we saw where almost $1 billion plus has been issued for the last 2 financial years. They should do their job. And even the Supreme Court has ruled that CDF is unconstitutionally illegal. I want to agree with former Prime Minister Raila Odinga that the work of Parliament, Senate and National, is to oversight, represent, legislate, and budget-making program. The National Assembly does not have a business to try and run CDF or any other funds. How do you run? You cannot have your cake and eat it. How do you run a program where you want to come and oversight? So that is what we need to really insist. And I wanted, the position of Kenyan government was that, Mr. Speaker, on when they appeared, and it was presented by a lady called Monica Asuna, who was the director of Planning National Treasury in Kenya. And I saw National Assembly complaining about CDF. They normally, when we complain about delayed disbursement to counties, they normally thought we are joking. I thought they are powerful. Why would they want to all lost the CS body over CDF? Counties today, as we talk, the last disbursement was in February. That counties have been dispersed. Up to now, more than 84 billion plus has not been dispersed to counties. So even as they push, because we are serving one Wanjiku, we are not serving different Wanjikus. Money should go to counties and money should go to CDF. You cannot tell us CDF to have money and counties do not have money, Mr. Speaker, going into the future. So the issue of sustainable development goals, colleagues, which I thought is very important, let us push so that we ensure zero hunger, zero poverty in this country, Mr. Speaker, and ensure we protect our lives, even good health and well-being. The government is running universal health coverage under Social Health Authority fund. Kenyans should ensure, Mr. Speaker, to stop a rampage of medical expenses in our villages every weekend. And I can say to you, as the senators sit here, you can see them in their phones, not because they are playing TikTok or they are watching TikTok. They are sending money to a rampage of medical expenses in the villages. The only way to stop it is to ensure that we register with Social Health Authority, Mr. Speaker, SHA, so that it becomes easy. I can tell you 90% of the Arambes we attend over the weekends is on medical expenses only. And it is on debts, Mr. Speaker, of deferring funeral expenses. We mustn't, but I want to challenge governors, even as President William Ruto, just as a minute, Mr. Speaker, I conclude, even as President William Ruto pushes the issue of SHA, Mr. Speaker, we must ensure that as we push for the registration of SHA, governors must provide medicine in our hospitals and medical services so that we can move as a country. Speaker, with those many remarks and to allow colleagues to contribute, I beg to second, Mr. Speaker, and I hope the Senator Kajwang will talk about climate action when his time comes up. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Senators, I propose the question. Honorable Senators, I propose the question that the Senate notes the report of the Senate delegation to the High-Level Political Forum 2024 on Sustainable Development held in New York, United States of America from 8th to 17th July 2024, laid on the table of the Senate on Thursday, 20th February 2025. Honorable Senators, I'll now give you an opportunity to make contributions to the motion. Senator Kajwang Moses.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and my apologies. I thought you were putting the question. Allow me to also support this report of the Senate delegation to the High-Level Political Forum on Sustainable Development. Mr. Speaker, there's a lot of duplication, conferences, workshops, and fora on similar subjects across the continent. Just last week, I was in Kampala, in Uganda, for the African Regional Forum on Sustainable Development. Again, we were looking at the fulfillment of the Sustainable Development Goals from an African perspective, alongside the fulfillment of Agenda 2063 of the Africa Union Commission. Mr. Speaker, whereas the theme of the high-level political forum on which this report is based was reinforcing the 2030 agenda and eradicating poverty in times of multiple crises, the effective delivery of sustainable, resilient, and innovative solutions, end of quote. The theme of the African Regional Forum on Sustainable Development last week was driving job creation and economic growth through sustainable, inclusive, science, and evidence-based solutions for the 2030 agenda and Agenda 2063 of the Africa Union. Mr. Speaker, they might sound like a duplication, but I want to believe that they complement each other. The more we talk about the issues facing Africa, the more we talk about the challenges facing the globe, the more we arrive at solutions. And Mr. Speaker, multilateralism is the glue that holds this globe together particularly when we are facing political and economic crisis. And so, in as much as it might appear as if there are too many talk shops on the same subject, I would still encourage that global players and global partners need to continue talking together. The Sustainable Development Goals, or Agenda 2030, have been a rallying point for economic, social, and political advancement in the globe. Mr. Speaker, as you do recall, we had the Millennium Development Goals, which then morphed into the Sustainable Development Goals, or the 2030 Agenda. But in Africa, we also have the Agenda 2063. What is silent in all these lofty agendas is Vision 2030. This country came up with a clear, lucid strategy, which envisaged that in the next 4 years, Kenya would be a middle level, a mid level, not low mid level income, but a true middle income society or middle income economy. Today, no one talks about Vision 2030. And Mr. Speaker, if you listen to the political players who are supposed to be providing leadership, the conversation has turned to Agenda 2027, which is about re-election, rather than thinking about the next generation and empowering them through building a resilient economic, social, and political infrastructure. Mr. Speaker, the subjects of this high-level forum, which report is on the table, focused on a number of sustainable development goals. It looked at SDG 1, SDG 2, SDG 13, 16, and 17. Today, SDG 1 is still extremely relevant to Kenya. Eradication of poverty in all its forms everywhere. And this was the challenge of the post-independence leadership. Remember Jomo Kenyatta framed it quite well, that our enemies were poverty, illiteracy, and disease. More than 50 years down the line, poverty still remains an enemy, and poverty still remains a matter of great concern. Vision 2030 had clear roadmaps on how to ensure that will reduce the number of people living in absolute poverty. Mr. Speaker, how I wish the political class could come back and have a compelling vision. The power of vision sometimes is illustrated in the American example. When the Americans decided they were going to the moon, it was not, it sounded grand, but the presidency, JFK, and the subsequent presidents that came on board were able to rally and mobilize the national psyche. They were able to mobilize and align research, innovation, technology, investments, everything towards achieving that national pride and goal. Kenya needs to go back to the drawing board, look at Vision 2030, which is obviously off track, and come back with a compelling vision. Mr. Speaker, I usually say that the Mwai Kibaki government left us with some things that we could learn from. We had a National Economic and Social Council. It was very highly powered. We even had people who had run economies in Singapore. We had people who had run successful economies outside Africa. Why can't we bring back a National Economic and Social Council anchored in law and given the necessary independence, the necessary facilitation to be able to think through the challenges that this country is facing and come up with a compelling vision that is aligned to the 2030 goals and aligned to the 2063 Africa Union goals. Mwai Kibaki had a dedicated ministry for national planning. Today, we've got a ministry for national, CS in charge of the national treasury and economic planning. And Mr. Speaker, from my observation, since this position was created, most of the cabinet secretaries have focused on the issues of the treasury, the issues of disbursements, the issues of fiscal policy, the issues of ensuring that there is money moving from taxpayers to relevant sectors of the economy. There's been very little attention to economic planning. Mr. Speaker, economic planning and running the national treasury sometimes requires two sets of skills and expertise. And perhaps it is time that the president, even when he's thinking about reorganization of his cabinet, he needs to give thought to an independent national economic planning department or ministry that is distinct from that of the national treasury, that looks after the granary and makes sure that whatever goes in is accounted for and whatever goes out is traceable. Mr. Speaker, another subject that was discussed at this forum was to end hunger and to achieve food security, improve nutrition, and promote sustainable agriculture. Mr. Speaker, 3 weeks ago, the CS for Agriculture was in this house, and we put a question to him on what the country's current agricultural policy is. And he confessed that he's still working on it. How can a country where 33% of the GDP comes from the agricultural sector, leave alone the other linkages that contribute to employment across the entire economy, operate without a clear agricultural policy? The Agriculture and Food Authority, Mr. Speaker, has for almost 8 years been running without a proper board, been running without a director general. This was only formalized last year. The regulations, sector-specific regulations, have not been brought to this House. And Mr. Speaker, I'm happy that this House processed the amendments to the Statutory Instruments Act that provides timelines and provides stiff penalties to cabinet secretaries or regulatory making entities that delay in making regulations. Agriculture is too important to be left on autopilot. The agricultural policy in this country, Mr. Speaker, save for a few sectors like tea, which has largely been run fairly well because the government has not been allowed to interfere too much. The rest of the sector is driven by God. We are on the mercy of God. We will be talking of an improved productivity, of improved production. Mr. Speaker, it is about rain. Not too long ago, I saw some top leaders going to church and thanking God for answering their prayers and claiming that they are responsible for the rains that fell on the nation and increased food production. We cannot run a country in this kind of contemporary economy, a global setup, by going through those kind of superstitious and backward beliefs that they are the ones who prayed for rain. It is as if prayer for rain is a preserve of just a few people. Mr. Speaker, successful economies have invested in things that go beyond the act of God. They invest in improved seed. They invest in fertilizer. There is no reason why this country, Mr. Speaker, continues to import and import fertilizer blended when we could, not too long ago, Toyota was supposed to set up a plant in Uasin Gishu for blending fertilizer. Let's ask ourselves, what is so special about fertilizer that stops us from getting phosphates from Morocco or getting raw materials from other parts of the country and other parts of the globe and blending it so that we have something that is fit for climatic conditions? We had a week ago, Mr. Speaker, that even donations that are given to us in good faith, we end up blending, repackaging, and selling at a profit. And then we say that that is our agricultural policy. As long as we are approaching agriculture from a perspective of tokenism and a perspective of prayer, then, Mr. Speaker, agriculture will continue to run on autopilot. And those sectors that perhaps are growing are the sectors where the public or where the government has no hands. The horticulture producers. You've got the large-scale producers in places like Narok, in places like
Senator John Kinyo, what is your point of order?
I just want my good friend, Senator Kajwang, to clarify whether he believes in prayers, because he's doubting everything. He's saying we can't live. So I'm wondering, why does he believe doesn't he believe in any prayers? No, I just want clarity. There's no standing, it's just clarity, because I know he's a good Christian and he's a good friend of mine.
Mr. Speaker, I am a Christian and I'm a believer, but there's an intersection between faith and science. And that the church acknowledges. The Catholic Church, the Anglican Church, the Islamic faith, all the faiths believe in that intersection between science and faith. And so, Mr. Speaker, I will not accept a situation where the leadership wants to tell us that they're the ones responsible for the rains through their prayer. Rain is an act of God. It is the benevolence of God that we get rain, and it is not because of human action. Mr. Speaker, as I conclude, I know there are so many things that were captured here. In the morning, I listened to my colleague, Senator Mungatana, talk about the need for a model climate change law, because part of the issues that were discussed at this high-level forum was urgent action to combat climate change and its impacts. And I'm glad to report, Mr. Speaker, that through the Africa Parliamentarian Network on Climate Change, where I sit in the Bureau, we have come up with a model climate change law, which we have circulated to all the parliaments across Africa. Kenya was a leader. Kenya came up with the first Climate Change Act in 2016. But from 2016 to date, a lot of things have changed. Things like carbon trading and carbon markets have become mainstream. The Paris Agreement has received further interpretation and further enhancements. We have new concepts like the new collective quantified goal on climate financing. We have new concerns like reforming the climate financing architecture. And so, Mr. Speaker, I will soon be presenting to the House and to the relevant committee the proposed climate change law so that we can compare it with Kenya's climate change law and see areas where we can enhance. One of the things that we have proposed in the model climate change law is climate budget tagging. In Uganda, Mr. Speaker, when Parliament processes the budget, they have to produce at least 2 certificates. One certificate is that the budget is gender responsive, and the second certificate is that the budget is climate responsive. I would be happy if Kenya adopted that practice, that every budget must be looked at to ensure that issues of climate are mainstreamed and issues of gender are mainstreamed alongside the other considerations that are in the Constitution. Mr. Speaker, even as we go to the next Africa Climate Summit, the first one having been organized and hosted in Kenya, the next one would probably be hosted in Addis Ababa, the Africa Union headquarters. We need to go there with clarity on what we want to achieve. The biggest elephant in the room is that the people who have made riches out of activities that have polluted and aggravated the climate crisis are unwilling to part with money, a little share of the black proceeds that they've gotten, so that other countries can adapt and other countries can mitigate. And that is why when we went to Baku in Azerbaijan for the last conference of parties, whereas African countries and developing countries had insisted that to deal with the climate crisis, we needed 1.3 trillion US dollars. The rich nations that have grown rich on the back of polluting and very hazardous activities were unwilling to yield. And out of the 1.3 trillion, it is only 300 trillion that was put on the table. And Mr. Speaker, that 300 trillion, so far there are no clear regulations and guidelines on how it will be utilized. And I hope that that will be the focus of all climate change activists as they proceed to Brazil for the next conference of party, to ensure that there are resources or means of implementation to allow developing countries like those in Africa, and even those that are not developing like Kenya, which is a low middle income economy, to be able to adapt, to be able to mitigate. Kenya has done very well when it comes to energy. If you look at our energy mix, it's largely renewable, but what we are producing is not enough. Mr. Speaker, I support this report, I support this motion, and I want to encourage that we ensure that we have adequate resources to allow these members to attend this high-level forum, because it helps to sharpen them and it helps to bring them up to date on contemporary global issues. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Senator Kajwang. And Senator Kajwang, as much as I agree with you that rain is the act of God, but even in the Bible and in the Islamic faith, we have seen several stories whereby prophets have prayed for rain. In the Bible, I'm sure there's the story of Elijah, who predicted a drought and then went ahead and prayed to God for rain so that to end the drought. So let us preach the right today. Senator Gloria.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Before I support this report, I want to encourage my colleague there that in God we trust. And all science interventions are good. Some can even be applicable in areas, but in God we trust, ultimately. Mr. Speaker, I want to rise to support this report on the high-level political forum on sustainable development goals, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, briefly, I just want to draw the attention of the House to point 5, which is the objectives of this forum, Mr. Speaker, and particularly on A and D, Mr. Speaker. On A, it says that the objectives of this high-level political forum were initially outlined in the General Assembly in the Resolution 66-288, and subsequently in the format and organizational aspects of the high-level political forum, sustainable development, as part of the Resolution of 67-290. Mr. Speaker, on A, it says that the objective here is to provide political leadership, guidance, and recommendations for sustainable development goals, Mr. Speaker. I was thinking on how to support this report, Mr. Speaker, and I realized that we have all the facts with us here. As legislators, we are guided to legislate for the people in terms of what the people need down in the grassroots, but also, as we are guided here on this high-level political forum, in terms of sustainable development goals, Mr. Speaker. And I was just reflecting on some of the bills that have been presented at the floor of this House, the upper house, Mr. Speaker. And I wanted to congratulate my colleagues who have actually been showcasing that they are interested in legislating for sustainable development goals, Mr. Speaker. Goal number 1 on no poverty, zero poverty, Mr. Speaker. Most of the pieces of legislation that we have here touch on how to bridge that gap between the rich and the poor, Mr. Speaker. Yesterday, I finally moved through the second reading my bill on period poverty, Mr. Speaker. That is just one of the pieces of legislations that we have at the floor of the House, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, on goal 4, you know the SDGs are 17. On goal 4, you have the quality education, Mr. Speaker. And one of the indicators for this SDG goal 4 is that you have attendance rates at the primary schools and at the colleges, Mr. Speaker. And all this, some of the pieces of legislation that I've seen here, including the bill on child protection by Senator Miraj, Mr. Speaker, is actually speaking to address goal 4, Mr. Speaker. As I support this report, I also want to talk about goal 5, which is to achieve the gender equality, Mr. Speaker. Recently, as a woman of Kenya and who has benefited from the affirmative program to represent women in this house, Mr. Speaker. We have had several conversations in the public about femicide, about GBV, about certain issues that are combating the women of Kenya, Mr. Speaker. And some of the conversations have been very saddening, Mr. Speaker, the latest one being that highlighted that, in fact, some of the girls or all of the girls who have been victims, unfortunate victims of femicide, are victims because they are looking for money, Mr. Speaker. As I have seen that the CS nominee of gender has been approved by the committee in the National Assembly, Mr. Speaker, I would like to encourage the legislators, in line with this high-level political forum report, to sit down with the CS nominee for gender, because they have approved her as a committee, Mr. Speaker, and perhaps sensitize her on the Sustainable Development Goal number 5, which is to achieve gender equality with regards to certain matters as femicide. The sensitivity and the importance of us as legislators and leaders of this country understanding a simple fact such that we cannot blame a victim, Mr. Speaker, and purport to be pushing the ideology of the SDGs that are being highlighted here, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, because of the time limitation that I have, you can see that I'm trying to really hurry through my points. I want to talk about Sustainable Goal 8, which is decent work and the economic growth in this country, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the Kenya Kwanza government has really tried, in terms of this SDG, to provide a program under the labor export program, Mr. Speaker, where we have the GTG, our Minister for Labor, going out to negotiate with other governments to try and, ring fence certain jobs, whether it is manual laborer jobs, whether it is plant operator jobs, drivers, and all these other jobs. Of dignity out there, so that our youth and the many Kenyans who are jobless can be able to go abroad and offer their skill set to those particular economies. While they earn money, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to say under this SDG Goal 8, Mr. Speaker,